Welcome to Beacon Bits. I'm Serge, joined by my co-host Yves. Yves just came back from St. John's, Newfoundland. How was that?
It was good. It was my first time going. So
Ever?
yeah.
What?
I know. I don't know why. I just never. And I have family there too. So you think that I would have gone there more.
I'm shocked. And you know what's funny though? The first time that I went to Newfoundland was not when I lived in the Maritimes. It's when I moved away. And I came back to visit. I'm like, while I'm down here, I should go to Newfoundland. And I loved it. Like, I thought it was great. St. John's, Newfoundland is kind of like Canada's hidden treasure. It's such a fun city.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I felt really welcoming. I also have a lot of family from Cape Breton, and I don't know if that's a thing, but like it definitely has similarities in terms of the warmth and welcome of everyone, and just the excitement to have us being there. So it was good. It was fun. I presented at the business boot camp. Did a couple of sessions on AI in the workplace, which was topics that you and I covered a little bit, to say the least. But it was good. It was fun. Definitely not going to wait another 45 years to go back. So I'll probably I might actually be back later this year even. So we'll see. Yeah.
Did you kiss the cod? Did you kiss the cod?
Don't put me on the spot.
You did.
No.
No, you didn't kiss the cod.
I didn't only because we didn't realize that you had to actually schedule. Like you actually book it. There's only certain bars that do it. And the bar we went to, I won't name them, I guess, but like I went to the bar for trivia night, and we're like, hey, can we get screeched in? And they're like basically go to another effing bar if like that's what you want to do. So,
really? Wow.
Everybody was like, oh, okay. Yeah. It was like if you're like basically treated as like tourist trap, but it was good. It was good. But you went to a sunnier part of the world, or at least at this time of the year. Palo Alto, California. How was that?
That was amazing. It's my first time in Silicon Valley, and I was crazy, right? And I was like a kid in a candy shop. But we went to LinkedIn's headquarters, and I think that is going to go well in the topic that we're going to cover today, because their office was so impressive. I've never seen anything like it. And obviously, I think it's the norm there. But if I was a young person working at LinkedIn, I would literally never leave. I would try to sleep there, because there's any type of food, any type of cuisine that you want to eat. The best like lounging areas, like tennis courts, pickleball courts, bars everywhere. Gym was amazing. They treat those employees really well. I get why they do it. Like, they want people to stay there as much as possible. And you could sense that, right? Because you saw people, like, we left at 8 one night, and it was still like packed with people working, and like had a great vibe. But I feel bad for some of these folks, because if they ever go work in the real world, man, they're going to be sadly disappointed.
Well, I mean, most of them aren't. Like if you're at LinkedIn, you're either going to another one of the big, that's the norm for them. But it is cool that like LinkedIn is one of those companies too that you never really hear of any like drama, or they're not in the news for some of the Silicon Valley excessiveness that we've heard over the years. And so at least like it's not just a front; it's part of the culture.
You kind of got a vibe of the Microsoft culture in some ways as well. Like, it was kind of that mix, but you definitely got like, we're Microsoft owned, right? And even in the speakers that we heard that worked there, is like they definitely, their message is toned differently than what I've heard in the past, and you're seeing that influence. So, but it was fascinating to be there. It's fascinating to see what's coming up in their world in the next couple of years. They're obviously doubling down on two things: skills, which we've talked about, and AI. And they have a huge advantage when it comes to AI. Like, having Daddy Microsoft there and is definitely a huge advantage that they have. So we'll see, but it was lots of fun. I saw the Apple headquarters from close, but also we went to this winery on top of Cupertino, and I saw it like down there. It was pretty cool. I wish I could have gone in, but they just don't allow regulars. Is that the case? Yeah.
No.
Exactly. I saw the gate, so I'm pretty sure you can get in with a car, but hey, who knows? But to that sense, I did feel old when I was in Silicon Valley, because everyone was extremely, extremely young, which it kind of goes well with the topic that we want to talk about today, because we want to talk about the challenges that youth are having in finding jobs. I just want to break it down quickly, Eve, like latest report from StatsCan Canada. So it was released a couple of weeks ago, but basically what it's showing that you are employed at the lowest level since February 2012, bar like the pandemic. So 2020 to 2022 is the exception here, but there's been almost no employment growth among youths between the age of 15 and 24 since December 2022. I'm not surprised by this because I'm hearing this everywhere in every conversation that I'm having with young people, but employers are expecting a lot more. And we're seeing this with job ads. We're seeing job ads entry level, like the title has entry level in it, and it's asking for 4 to 5 years experience. To me, entry level is entry level.
Yeah.
And then you look at the description, like I saw a marketing job ad that was basically looking at everything as an entry level. I'm like, this would be a CMO at a lot of companies. So that kind of goes in the expectations of the employers are really, really high. Future employees are coming in and they have high expectations because they've just spent a lot of money on a university degree and they're expecting to start to getting a return. So they're asking for way more than what the market is actually able to sustain or is willing. I think we've led a lot of our younger generation astray, and this is where I'm going to sound really old. This has changed from like our generation and the generation before, because me and you were probably the last generation is like, go to school, trades or university are good, community college is good.
Yep.
But the generation after us is like, you have to go to university. And we've kind of screwed ourselves by doing that because we're seeing a huge gap in skill trades, like we've talked about before. And then what's happened too is the skill sets that are needed in the workplace, I feel are completely different. Like one of the things that I learned at LinkedIn is their internal data shows that 68% of the skills that are in the workforce right now are going to change within 6 years. So is our education system set up to be able to do that? But that's what I'm hearing. I think there's a disconnect between both expectations, but also I think we have just led too many people into wrong trades and the wrong. I don't know what you're seeing at Career Beacon, if that's the vibe you're getting, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. There's that mismatch.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing like a consistent mismatch similar to what you just described. We deal with a lot of small businesses too, so a lot of them are don't have a ton of resources, so they don't necessarily have the sophistication as well to really set up like proper onboarding, training, and so a lot of times it's someone joins your team and it's like figure it out. Like that's that's the job because they don't know how to they're hiring for roles that they may not have someone who can actually pass on those skills, because usually if you're hiring your first marketing person, your first HR person in an organization, well, there's nobody else that's really there to through the ropes, right? So I think there's some element of that. You mentioned like just the expectations of like coming out of school with big debt. I don't know if it's just the debts that are like kind of creating an expectation that either the salary should be at a certain threshold, or instead of like an entry level role, that they should be starting at a mid-level management position or at a mid-level role. And so I think there's a little bit of mismatch there. Like I see it anecdotally from conversations I've had with sometimes friends, sometimes family, sometimes employer, like customers, and there's definitely like the two sides aren't talking very much. Like there's not really a willingness. There's not a willingness to come together and figure it out. I'll share one story that and this is obviously not going to impact all industry. There's less of an affinity to hire young talent, and even in tech, because like a lot of these companies want people to go back to the office. They want people to be going back to a 9 to 5 days, or with some flexibility there, but they still want the majority of the time back at the office. And they don't necessarily want to meet the expectations or the demands in some ways of some of the newer generations that are entering the workforce. They just don't want to bother with it. So they don't want to hire, almost discriminating on both ends of the age spectrum, where you and I are way too old for tech companies, but they also don't want to hire as young as they used to in some cases.
Okay, so I want to dig in a little bit on that because there's different research out there that shares that maybe young people do prefer going into the office, and this is like tech is different because think about your 20s. The office is where you got all your social contacts, you made your friends, you go for beers after work, like they became your social circle in a way, even though you work. And that changes as you have a family and like your priorities change and you're not as willing to spend. It's funny because I was recently reading an article on this talking about the return to office in young people, and they highlighted the videos on TikTok of a lot of Gen Z folks that are coming in the workplace, and they're kind of entitled to have the expectation that yes, we have a incredible office, we can work from the pool, we can do all of this, and then CEOs are looking at this like screw that, like what the hell, like you're not working, you can't be working from the side of the pool in the same way as someone sitting at their desk with like all their equipment and everything. So I think there's a little bit of that, but what I want to dig in here is, do you think young people have expectations because they're seeing the creator economy, which is people creating like podcasts, TikTok videos, YouTube, and they're seeing how much money those people make and be like, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to focus and make my money and have flexibility. Like I'm never going to work a real job. And I think that's a little bit of just you, like not knowing better, right? Do you think the expectations from that creator economy is creating a little bit of this disconnect?
I actually, well, it's funny you mention it. I hope I'll still get invited to family dinners, but I have two members of my family that's what their goal is. Like,
yeah,
that's is to be YouTubers or content creators. So we'd have to survey maybe a few more than just two people, or to see if that's actually influencing their decision making. But I think it's a little bit more than that too. Like I think we have.
well, I think it's a small part, right? Like I'm not saying that's the cause,
Everyone wants to be a million, YouTube creator. No, I don't think so either. But I think you mentioned even the university, like everyone wanting to go back to university. Like I remember, like when I had to make that decision, I was, oddly enough, I still remember that, even though it was so long ago. But I remember like most friends like just wanted to go to the same university. It wasn't because they wanted to pick a certain, discipline or certain career path. They just wanted to keep partying and hanging out with their friends, and so they just make their decisions based on that. I think there's a little bit of that still happens today. It's just way more expensive than it used to be. One theory that I also have about the resurgence of youth wanting to go back to university or to go to university in the first place is that feeling a part of something, like the brand, the logo, like oh I'm from Stanford or MIT, or like, okay, well that's great, but then what's your actual path from, okay, once those 4 years or 6 years are done, and like then what do you do? Like, do you have an opportunity like waiting for you on the other side?
well, it used to be a guarantee. You had a job if you went to university, but now you're looking at, like, to give you the example, LinkedIn, they changed their policy last year where there's only a select roles that you need a university degree. They've removed a lot of it and it's been focused on the skills. So it's no longer a big competitive advantage to go to university. I'm not saying not to go to, right? Like I think education is good. So yeah, when we look at what the youth job market is, they're struggling. They're having a hard time finding jobs. And then I'm trying to figure out, well, what are the real reason like that this is happening? Obviously, we talked about we just feel a mismatch expectation, which is probably true. And if you look at some of the data that StatsCan shared, some of it shares that. So new graduates compete with experienced candidates due to the tech sector layoff. Obviously, that's maybe not as relevant in Atlantic Canada, but it still is. There's a fair amount of people in the tech sector everywhere that's been laid off, and if you're coming into tech, you're competing against that. I think there is, to your point, what you mentioned, that there is a little bit of an expectation of coming in and they're maybe expecting to be at a higher level and not do the grunt work that we all did. And that's like, we're going to sound old, but I think that's the reality. Like you have to do the things that maybe you don't like doing, but it's part of the learning experience of like, hey, I've done email campaigns like from scratch and I understand it. And that helps you as you grow your career. But the other thing is we have a lot of students. We have a lot of students that are graduating in courses that maybe there's not as much value. It's a lot competitive and that might change completely. But aside from that, I think it's just kind of the factor of where we are in the economy at the moment. I think it's just a rough overall job market, even though it took years for the market really to catch up to that. Because if you looked at all the job numbers the last 2 years, like, what do you mean you can't find a job?
Yeah.
There's plenty of jobs out there, which was really not the case. I don't know if you feel the same, but I always felt those numbers were like, I think there's a lot more unemployed people than what the numbers are showing, but I don't know.
I hate those numbers. Like, they're just masking what's really happening. Like, I don't think people are really, because people just read the headlines, so I don't think they really dig into the fact that 80 something percent of all jobs created in Canada in the last year or so has been from the public. There are jobs being created, but the majority of these jobs are part-time. What is in that should be alarming in those reports is the youth unemployment, because that's the next generations entering the workforce. We keep complaining that there's no one ready to take over the boomers and the people that are going to retire and these generations that are about to exit the workforce, but yet we're not investing in youth to essentially take over some of those roles. We know it's an issue, but I don't know that we're doing really anything about it. And yes, there are government programs to try to stimulate youth employment, but if those jobs are going to be mostly like summer jobs of like, hey, run the paper shredder at this office, or do some photocopy, like if they're not actually going to start like learning meaningful skills that allow them to really like create an opportunity for them, then we're not. That's also not solving the problem. I try to be optimistic about, like, yes, the numbers are pretty doom and gloom right now, especially in Canada, but it's an opportunity for someone like if you're a young person that's like applying for a job, find a way to stand out, like because nobody, like, there's like the effort right now that's being done to apply for most jobs is just like hit apply. There's no thought put into like personalizing the resume a little bit, showing interest in the employer. Like, you could really easily stand out and get in front of the line pretty quickly.
I think you're completely right, though. I think we have simplified the application process so much compared to what it was applying for a job not that long ago. Like, we're talking like maybe 2013, 2014, since like quick. And now you've got AI tools that you can apply to many jobs, as we've talked before. I recommend for a lot of young people, I know just this might be a lot of work, but as they get any type of experience, start creating a portfolio of the work that they've accomplished. And that could be building a PowerPoint presentation. For all I care, kids don't use PowerPoint, shows you how old I am, but well, something that makes you stand out, something that really is different and out there than just applying to 2,000 jobs. Like, you hire young people all the time. What's your advice to young people who are like, I can't find a job, like graduating out of high school and be like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. What's hot? Like, what is going to have plenty of jobs? What do you recommend? What do you tell them?
I would say if you're like debating like what career trajectory you're thinking of going, like, you have to find that balance between finding something that you're going to be passionate about and care about. And I know that might not sound like feasible all the time, and it's not, but if you can find that combination of doing something that you actually really like, but also educate yourself to make sure that there's opportunities in those career paths, because just doing something you're passionate is great, but you might realize that someday if you can't eat, it's working on something that you're really passionate about may not be as exciting. So I think like finding that balance, but like anything else, educate yourself. Like, what are the average salaries that are going to be in these types of roles? Like, who are the employers? Do I plan on staying home? Is this a job that can accommodate the lifestyle that I want? Like, answer those questions before just saying I'm going to go to like this university because my friends are going there. Some people still turn out to be really successful, even if that's the approach. But
well, can I add to that? Because I think you're 100% right. And I think this is advice that has been given to the youth generation for like a long time. And I think it's inaccurate. You have to be passionate about what you're going to do. And I'm like, well, okay, it's not wrong, but also, like, is everyone going to be able to be successful in something that they really like? You have to flip it on its head and be like, what can I really excel at and master? And in that mastery of whatever it is, you are going to become extremely passionate. And if you master it, you're going to get the recognition. So I think it's like finding what you're good at and putting the hours in and mastering it is going to bring that passion, instead of being like, well, I'm passionate about pickleball. Well, it doesn't mean I'm going to become a pickleball champion, right? But maybe I'm really good at copywriting and I don't maybe crazy about it, but I become so good and master it that naturally. So I guess the advice is like screw people saying follow your passion. Find out what you're good at and follow that. Advice for the day.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll concede on that. I think figure out what you're good at, but then get really passionate about it.
Yes. What are you good at? I still haven't figured that out after knowing you for 5 years.
Product. I'm really good at product.
Yeah,
Product
you're
design.
passionate about it, right? Like,
I love everything about everything about creating an experience that people feel engaged, and I love building things. I love solving pain points, like pain points that people don't even know exist. One of my favorite moments is still the first time that we had a customer pay us for something we built from nothing, right? That we created enough value into something that this large company who made millions of dollars every year felt that it was worthwhile enough for them to pay for it. That I'll never be able to replicate that moment unless I start something new someday. But like I won't be able to replicate that in my opinion. But yeah, the thing I would add to it too is be prepared to be multidisciplined. I would say in a lot of roles today, right? Like the whole like one track kind of like career trajectory is really hard these days. Like expectations are that you have a lot of transferable skills. You're able to maneuver and move. And I'm not surprised that LinkedIn is really pushing the skills like aspect of hiring, because I think everyone's going to go like, okay, this person have the skills to do this role, but then if we want them to go in this direction or this direction, like what are the the transferable skills that they have? So
I agree with that. When we look at skills, and skills are moving so quickly, but also there's so many resources to be able to get those skills online that never was the case before. You can learn anything. Like you say you want to figure out UX design. Well, Google actually has a course that's accredited that you can actually learn it in 6 to 9 months. And obviously you're going to need more practice, but you can acquire skills really quickly than in the past, and they're transferable. And I think that's the future. You're not going to see someone in one specific role. I think they're going to move around. It's going to be way more focused on the skill set that they've built up. The other thing, though, there is when you talk to, what I'm hearing is a lot of employers saying there's a challenge with soft skills. There's a challenge in roles that you need to leverage soft skills like sales. You need the ability to communicate effectively. You need the ability to read signals, to really create a relationship. And that's not something that you can completely learn. I think there's aspects of that you're born with it, but I think you can learn and practice. And it's what I call doing the reps, right? Like if you want to be a really good salesperson, you need to make a lot of calls, because your first one is going to be horrible, but your 100's going to be better. Your 1,000 is going to be better, on and on. So I think it comes in practice and developing those soft skills, because a lot of the hard skills they're going to change. They're changing every year. They're changing, like to LinkedIn's data, like 6 years from now, 70% of the skills we use now are going to be different. So soft skills are absolutely critical. And I'm seeing it. I'm getting a lot of that feedback in just the job market and employers. But then on the other side, I'm like, all right, they probably said that about me. I was a tool when I was 18. I'm sure you were. I know you. You're probably really challenging. But no, but you've developed really good soft skills.
Soft skills is probably what's going to make people stand out for a lot of roles these days. Like, because like a lot of the education is going to be on par for a lot of people. So like what's going to make you better than the other person is your how you show up at work every day, like your level of curiosity you have, like adaptability, learning, like all of those things. Like that's really what's going to make you stand out. So it's going to be really hard to measure people just strictly on like. Fun fact is, I don't know if you knew this, but so Ben and I started the company, I guess unofficially in 2013, and the company was the code name for the company was called Skills Match.
Yeah, I remember you telling me. Yeah, Skills Match.
Yeah.
You were just 10 years too early.
I know.
You can bring it back, right? Like maybe that's your new product. New announcement here. Making news on Beacon Bits. A new tool called Smart Skills?
Skills Match.
Oh, Skills Match. Whatever. You never took it out. You never released it, so I can name it whatever I want, Yves.
Fine. Yeah.
Just go with it. It's probably a better name. So I guess that's where you're challenged when it comes to your soft skills of naming something, because it didn't roll off the tongue.
You should have been a marketer.
Hey, I'm the one that wanted to call our conference, if we ever did one, Career Beacon. Get it? Career Beacon. Yeah. So let's end it here in a sense of couple things that you mentioned when the youth are looking for a job. The youth are looking for a job. That sounds really bad. Be different. You said that, right? Like be different, but do something different that makes you stand out, because it's so easy right now to stand out in a sea of sameness. Everyone's doing the same thing. So find hopefully something that you can grow into, be passionate about if you become really good. The other element is standing out when you do the job, because that's also a challenge, right? Like coming in and doing the bare minimum, like that's not really how you grow your career to be successful. You do take the time that you have. So your 20s, in my opinion, are the critical years of really standing out, hustling, getting the work done. That's how you're going to get promoted, get better job. But the other side of it too is entrepreneurs. Is entrepreneur a valid or something that young people should aspire to when they're coming out of college, instead of going work for someone, to start their own business instead of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's going to be certain types of industries that are going to not be as easy to build companies in the future, but there's also a lot of types of businesses that could do really well today. Most trades are still in dire need, right? So someone starting a company in certain types of verticals, like they could totally dominate, especially if they understand like how to build in the technology and build in like the marketing side of it and really create a brand that people can connect to. Like there's tons of opportunities. Don't go in thinking that it's the glory, private jet, fancy cars.
Is that what it is? I thought you had a private jet, Eve.
No, I only have it on the weekends. It's just a rental. It's not the easy path. It's not the solution to not finding a job. Like that's I've met countless like young people who, not just young, actually anyone who wanted to kind of go down the entrepreneurship route. And a lot of times they don't always want to do it because they're passionate about something. It is the case sometimes. And I know you don't like passion. We talked about that earlier. But sometimes it's because they were let go. They feel that because they know a lot about the business that they're at, they can, build a competitor business and go head to head with their former employers. Like that's happened. But sometimes they it's just like, I can't find a job, or I don't like my boss, or I see how much money they make and I could make more money if I just did it myself. Like those aren't good reasons to go into entrepreneurship. But if you have skills, especially if you have a lot of soft skills, I had to go back and do some upgrading after I finished high school.
I did too.
Did you? English?
French, actually.
Me too.
And I grew up French. That was my first language, and I had to go back to graduate.
I didn't get into entrepreneurship because I had a lot of math skills or programming skills, or even though I run a software company today, but I had a lot of problem solving skill, real life, like, I'm gonna hate that word, but passion for what I was doing.
So you had the soft skills, but you also had the resilience, which is the skill that you need the most as an entrepreneur. Like, what would you say is the litmus test of being like, I have the internal fortitude to be an entrepreneur?
It's going to be a very, very light litmus test, but it's doing a business plan or a pitch deck. I know a lot of like VCs and whatever don't want to see business plans because it's an antiquated kind of like approach to business. But it does force you to think about the whole picture. It forces you to think about like, how am I going to build this company? How am I going to get customers? How much is it going to cost? Right? And if you're not even willing to do that, like if I have to chase you to get like, your pitch deck or your business plan, like you're probably not wired for this.
Such good advice. And I don't know, but I'm going to make the assumption that most people don't, when they approach you, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur like you. They don't have a plan. They just have an idea. Ideas are easy. Execution is really, really hard.
And we're still trying to figure out how to execute today. It's been 10 years. So it's something that we constantly refine. Yeah, I would say that. I'd say the other thing I'll add to is the willingness to go and like, if you have an idea for a pain point and you're not willing to figure out who might actually pay you money for this, go talk to customers or potential customers, pitch your idea, like try to get a sense of, if you're too scared or afraid that you're going to basically have someone tell you that your baby's ugly, is what I call it, you're probably not ready for it.
Yeah, I've called a lot of baby ugly in my time. So I think a lot of people will say, well, everyone thinks it's a great idea. And unless someone says, well, here's money, either in buying the product or investing in the company, it doesn't
Here's the
really
flagrant.
entice me to be interested in your company if no one is willing to offer you money and invest in or buying your. Do I have an idea that people are actually going to buy or pay me money? That's until someone gives you that check. That's the proof.
So Serge, like one thing that happens that I'm seeing more and more is like I have parents now that like continually like they have kids that are either about to finish high school and you know and they're concerned, right? They're concerned about what opportunities are there for their kids, and obviously parents do have an influence sometimes on the decision, the career decisions that kids make, right? Sometimes a little bit too much influence, but overall, like how are you approaching, or how do you see yourself approaching? You have 3 daughters. How do you see
Yeah.
yourself approaching those conversations and 10 years from now when they're about to go down that road?
Well, it makes me really nervous because I'm thinking like 10 years from now is so far away in the sense of just the acceleration that we're going through with AI accelerating the pace of change. But let's just put the context of here and now today. And I guess it depends what the interest, and it kind of goes to what we talked about, like are they really good at and what could they potentially succeed? I would not discourage trades. Like it's the one that I'm so gung ho on because not only as like doing the trade, but as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Think about like you're an electrician or you're construction, anything, machinist. And I'm maybe a little bit biased because my whole family is in trades. I'm the exception to it, but I also see how well they do. I see how much
Right.
money I make, and I see how much money my brother makes. And he works. He at 5 o'clock, he's done. Like he's not worrying about anything, and he's doing a really good lifestyle. So I would re-encourage trades in some ways,
Yeah.
but in the path of being an entrepreneur in it. But that might not be for everyone. If I'm looking
Yeah.
at hard skills of, okay, what is it going to look like in years from now? Well, you're never going to go wrong with AI. And I know that's such a big category, but there's such demand for that skill set, and it's going to be more and more. So having that expertise in AI, but also in data analytics, I think that's going to become, and there might be factors of AI replacing elements of data analysts that you're doing. But those are really key roles. Other roles that in the past I was like, oh, that's stupid. Like going to college in arts. I think there's a lot more value in the artist now than there's ever been because you're looking at, we talked about content creation. That's not what I mean, but you're looking at how marketing is done right now. If you're
Right.
really good in design, if you're really good in putting concepts together, videography, like all of those factors of the art side of it, I think there's plenty of opportunities there. And when that comes across all the time, but actually I had a weird story happen with this. I've always been saying cybersecurity, there's such a demand. But then I was in a cab in Nashville and I'm like, hey, I always talk to the Uber driver and he's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, oh, is this your like full-time gig? He's like, no, I'm actually in cybersecurity. I'm like, then he's like, well, I can't find a job. And I'm like, whoa, you can't find a job in cybersecurity. But then I dug in deeper. I'm like, how many jobs have you applied? Well, none. I'm like, what do you mean you can't find a job? Well, no one's called me. I'm like, well, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you have to apply, I'm sure. But in saying that, the advice I would give everyone is you got to upgrade your skills every year. Your investment should be in yourself. And I know that sounds really fluffy, but invest in your core skills on a continual basis. I think you'll be ahead of it. And I don't have much education on my end, but I've been an avid learner my whole life, right? Like I read a lot of books. Same for you. I think we get a lot of our knowledge of maybe some street smarts, but also stay on top of everything, like being constantly aware of what's going on in your industry. Even if you're not smart, you're going to sound smart, which is how I've survived.
I was going to say how we both survive.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, that's really good advice. I like the continuous learning. I'm an advocate. I also think it's how like that's what life is. The minute you stop learning something, that's like you stop growing, in my opinion, as a human being. So it's just like keep learning. That's what keeps you young. That's what keeps us looking as handsome as we are for our age. Everyone should have a responsibility to want to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
But I also want to see employers do more there. Like start opening those personal development budgets again. Start encouraging your employees to have access to resources to continue learning, because they're going to need to, and you're going to want them to have more transferable, because it's literally going to be the reality of what's happening here for the next forever, really. But Yeah.
Wise words. And I think that is for every organization, not only for younger generation coming in the workforce. Like, you're going to have to reskill a ton of your employees. So get those programs in place and give the tools for people to, because the thing is, we're 5 years away from Gen Z being 30% of our workforce, and we're not setting them up with the proper skill sets to be ready. And that means some mentoring, that means some help, that means the right program. So I'm glad you nailed that, because it seems like this podcast, we've been like, oh, you need to do this. But there is an accountability to the employers, because if you're not, you're screwed in a couple of years, because the boomers are retiring at a that we like, and Gen X like myself, we don't really want to work anymore. So putting that in context, we need the millennials and we need the Gen Zs.
Well, no one's going to take my spot because I'm never retiring. So you're saying I'll have another co-host here soon, is what you're saying?
No, I when I say Gen X doesn't want to work, I mean, I still want to get paid, but do I want to do the effort in the same way that I did in my 20s? I'm hoping to rely on my knowledge a lot more as I get in my older years. So there still needs a lot of work done, and I'm saying that in jest. Obviously, I still have to work, and I don't plan on retiring, but I want to work on stuff that
you want to pick and choose what you want to work
on.
on.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. So another episode of Beacon Bits, and this was a fun one. I think we should do this again. I think this is episode 4, and 6. We need to get to episode 6, because 98% of podcasts don't go past episode 6, or a goal is at least 7 episodes.
This is episode 5.
Oh, there you go.
Technically, we have had 6, but we decided, there's that thumbs up. So, but yeah, technically, we have recorded 6, but one of them will never see the light of day.
Oh, it's probably the best one. That will be in our vault. That will be for
that'll be the vault.
Special subscription. If you pay us $100,000 each, you will get free access to this. It's like when they sold the Wu-Tang album for $1 million to one person. That's what we're doing here. So on that note, sure. Yves, always a pleasure. Looking forward to the next one.